Today, I'm here with my colleague and friend, Lisa Kaplin, and she has recently been named as one of the top 20 executive coaches in Chicago by InfluenceDigest.com and Women's Empowerment Coach of the Year by CEO Today. Now, Lisa is a licensed psychologist, professional speaker, and experienced executive and life coach. Now, there's something that I didn't know about her until recently, and that is that Lisa used to work in the banking and real estate industries. However, something I have known about her since, well, frankly, the moment we met, which just happened to have been the week before the pandemic shut down, is how comfortable she is with navigating this wild ride that we all take when it comes to our emotions and our triggers. Now, among all the coaching and training she does, Lisa is also a lead trainer for IPEC Coaching, which is an ICF certified international training program for life and executive coaching. Now, I could go on for days listing her degrees and certifications and experience and skills.
Please don't.
But that would mean we wouldn't have much time to get to our conversation. So
Exactly.
You're just going to have to look up all of that for yourself. So I just want to say welcome, Lisa, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Same. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I am wanting, well, let me just start this way. One thing that I know about you is that you have an amazing ability, which is also infectious, at least to me, to see your own foibles, your own habits, your own triggers, and then to talk about them in a way that is not only honest, but funny and endearing.
Thank you.
To combine this sort of real, raw humanity and the skills of incredible self-awareness at the same time. And I'm really curious to know if this is just how you were born or brought up, or is this a skill that you learned? What's the backstory here?
Definitely not born that way. Definitely not raised that way, I would say. That really, because I knew we were going to talk about some of this. I was thinking about it. Really, where a switch came in my life was I was seeing a therapist and talking about some struggles I was having in life with some relationships and things. And he said, "Well, who else do you talk to about it?" I said, "No one. No one knows." Like, I really had this like Stepford wife kind of thing going on. And he's like, "Well, let's change that." And so then I just started to be honest with the people I was close to. And I realized I liked it. And it's, we're so afraid of being ashamed or embarrassed. And when you just walk right into it, like, it's all good. I'm going to be fine. And sharing that, oh, yeah, I messed this up, or I didn't do this right, or I said this crazy thing and people laughed at me. It just made everything more fun and entertaining and funny.
I love it. So often when we're feeling those sort of negative or shameful things that's going on inside, it feels so terrifying to sort of let them out into public, like this is going to kill me.
Yes, totally. I think most people, you've probably read some of Brene Brown stuff about shame.
Yeah.
I think most people would rather die than be ashamed.
Yes.
Seriously. And think
Yes.
about that. Like, how crazy is that? Like, shame is not comfortable, but you're not going to die. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you'll probably be stronger for it. Like, hey, I survived that shaming incident. Bring on the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, just out of curiosity, what do you find happens when people end up either blind to their own quirks or emotions or sort of not willing to sort of look at them?
Well, then there's like a lack of authenticity that you can sense from people. There's also a wall that goes up. But what we know from the work that we do is it also kind of stockpiles, and it's going to show up somehow, but it's not going to be the way you necessarily wanted it to show up. So there's so many dangerous factors to it. It's so internalizing, and which means you're judging yourself, because if you weren't judging yourself, you'd externalize it. Um, and so it's a hot mess is my, short answer.
Yeah, I love that. There are a couple of things in there you said that really caught my eye. One of it is if you don't deal with them, it tends to fester and get bigger, which reminds me, of course, of that really famous Jung quote, that what you resist not only persists, but grows in size. We don't actually often hear that last part,
Right.
but how, yeah, if we don't face this, it doesn't go away
Doesn't go away.
and it gets bigger.
Yeah. And more, I think more dangerous because it can, kind of explode into place in a way that you don't want it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
Yeah.
you said this other thing which struck me, which I'd never heard before, is that if we don't externalize, or no, how is it you said this, that if we don't externalize things, we're judging ourselves. I've forgotten exactly what you
Right.
said here.
If I feel like I have to internalize it, it's because I'm saying it's bad. I'm judging it in some
Ah,
way. Versus if like I share it and externalize it, I'm not judging it. There's no judgment involved.
yes.
Right.
And that judgment, that's a pretty heavy weight that we often carry around, isn't it?
That's the big weight. Exactly. That internalized judgment and that messaging that goes on in our head, like, you dummy, what were you thinking? What's wrong with you? Just to name a few.
Yeah, yes.
There's more
Absolutely.
in there, but yeah, to name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. So
Yeah.
now, literally 2 hours ago, I got an email from you with your latest blog post.
Oh,
And in it, you wrote, quote, when I tell my clients that radical acceptance of ourselves and our worth is what builds confidence, they look at me as if I'm crazy. I don't believe that, they say. This is the common response. Tell us more about what is this radical self-acceptance and why is it so important?
Well, it's funny because what I see people doing is so harsh, such judgment of themselves. And then, I always ask the question, like, so how's that working for you? How's that judgment serving you? And the radical self-acceptance is we all are. We have all these ways that we show up. What if we radically accept ourselves, that leaves the judgment behind, and then we accept ourselves exactly for who we are. And with that, I really believe is the belief that we're limitless, that we're, perfect as is, all of those things. But my clients often say, well, if I'm not hard on myself, no one else will be hard on me. I'm like, yeah, and what's wrong with that? That sounds good to me. Right? But there's a belief that you have to beat on yourself to succeed. Who
Yeah,
says?
yeah,
Right?
great point. So how do you define acceptance? I mean, I can think of when I've talked with clients about accepting something as it is, there's this look sometimes that says, well, you mean I'm supposed to feel bad and this terrible thing is supposed to have happened to me? That doesn't feel right either. Tell me about acceptance and how you think about that word.
I really think of the word as full on reality based. So, let's say I said something to somebody and I feel bad about it, and I'm not accepting that that's what I did or that's the situation. I can't change the past. I don't know if anyone knows this. Like, if I could, I'd be using that to my own best interest, by the way. I'd be retired. No, not really, because I like working, but I'd have money to retire and say that. Um, but it's like, okay, this is what happened. Let's look at it. Let's look at it with possibilities. This is what it is, and go from there. And I think people spend so much time in regret and remorse and anger and all of those things because they just won't accept what is.
No. Yeah, sometimes I talk about the difference sort of between accepting something as it is and condoning it, or
Right,
that there's a difference there.
right. There's a difference. Yeah, exactly. Accepting is this is without any judgment. It just is,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And condoning means something more about this is the way it's supposed to be rather than
Yes,
this just is.
right. And
Yeah,
condoning almost seems like you're saying this is good or
yeah,
bad, which is still a judgment. Even if we say it's good, it's still a judgment
yeah,
versus it is. Kind
right.
of like how we met right before COVID. COVID was. I didn't enjoy it, but it was. Anything I feel about it won't change that it was,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. I remember hearing Eckhart Tolle sort of talk about how when we're stuck in the mud, to get unstuck in the mud, we first have to recognize the fact that we are stuck. And then you
Right?
can move on.
Exactly. If you don't know that, you're just gonna, it's kind of like, did you watch quicksand shows when you were a kid?
Yeah.
You know, Batman was always in quicksand, like, right, and then they'd fight it and they'd be in more quicksand, kind of like that, right? The same thing with the mud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So another question that just arose is the word judgment has come up a number of times in our conversation.
Hmm.
Um, Tell me about how you see judgment. Are there times when judgment gets to be good? Or is it useful? Tell me about how you think about judgment.
That's a good question. I mean, if you're human, you judge, right? I mean, some
Yeah.
of how our brain is developed, it is to judge, like that is bad, go, don't go that way. There's a snake over there. That is good, go this way. Our brains do that. So some judgment certainly makes sense. But for me, where I see judgment playing such a crucial role and not a positive crucial role in people's lives is the harsh judgment of themselves and others.
Mm,
And that the constant I'm not good enough, I don't, and I know you do a lot of the inner work where we've got these stories going that I'm not good enough, I can't do anything right, which just holding on to that judgment just holds us back, and
yeah.
it doesn't serve anything positive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It often feels like the sort of weight around our shoulders that we're just dragging around.
Exactly, exactly, and it changes nothing. In fact, I think it keeps us from accomplishing more, so then we judge ourselves more, and then we're in that doom loop of I'm not
Mm,
good enough. I don't do anything. I judge myself, and I don't do anything, and you keep going in that circle.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty, ooh, feels heavy just to think about that actually.
Right? It's like the weighted vests or something. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So all this sort of incredible self-awareness that I am aware in you, um, what is it that tends to get in people's way when they are, shall we say, trying to become self-aware? What is it that prevents the self-awareness? I guess that's the real question.
Yeah. I That's such a great question because I think judgment is part of it. I think the other part of it is it's scary to be fully not fully, because I don't think we're fully somewhere to we're like rolling in the grave, but on the
Yeah,
journey of self-awareness.
yeah.
It does mean looking at yourself with an open eye of, I did some things, I said some things that, ouch, that, I don't feel good about, or, I made some decisions in my life. I think looking at those can be painful and scary for people. And also, honestly, like, what's the saying? Ignorance is bliss. There's something really, you
Mm.
know, if I don't have to look at anything, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to apologize to anybody. I don't have to own anything. I just gonna put my head in the sand. Don't mind me.
Ah, yeah.
It's easy.
Yes. It is. Yeah, self-awareness requires responsibility too, it sounds like.
It does. It does because it means you're really looking at yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing how those things go together and how we so easily get sidetracked
Yes.
by things that can seem kind of hard at times.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yet it seems like as you start to open the door of self-awareness, just a little at a time, it's like, I'm okay. Okay, I'm gonna open it a little bit more. I'm okay. And there's freedom in it.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. So often people, I think, are hoping for change and they want things to be different in their life. And as someone we both know, Bruce Schneider says, everyone wants to change, but nobody wants to go through what it takes to
Exactly.
create the change.
Yes. So
But
true. It's like
that's the
moving.
hard work. Yeah. But the fact that you said, self-awareness is about sort of opening the door a little bit
Hmm.
and realizing you didn't die.
Right,
And
exactly.
maybe we can open it a little further. It's the sort of uh,
Exactly.
constant but incremental growth in self-awareness, it sounds like.
Yes. It's a life journey for sure.
Yeah.
I really think, I don't know if you feel this way, but every time I think, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty enlightened. I'm pretty aware. There's something that happens in the world to remind me, not quite. Sit back, sister. You got some work to do.
Yes, it reminds me sometimes watching, movies or TV series or something where somebody says one thing that feels kind of definite, and the next thing that's going to happen is the opposite of that.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Right. And that's it right there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
More growing to do.
And more growing to do. Yeah. So when people are willing to sort of go on this journey of self-awareness and to sort of open this door gradually for themselves and see themselves more honestly, what do you see as sort of the 3 or 4 sort of biggest benefits that people experience from that?
What is peace? Like you don't have to fight
Mm.
it anymore.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Of like, oh, this is who you are. This is who you'll be. I mean, we could change components of ourselves, but who we are is who we are. And there's such peace in that full-on acceptance and seeing ourselves. I
Mm.
think too, just showing up more authentically in your relationships and with people, and then you'll not always, but often you'll get that reciprocated.
Yeah.
And so, you then that leads to more intimate, closer relationships, and it keeps going from there. And I think there's just happiness in that. I know that sounds like a simple, um, but when you don't have to fight it, there's
Mm.
a poem, I forget. I heard it at a funeral once about like you can put down your sword. It's a poem and it's beautiful. And I was like, oh yeah, that's it exactly. Like, stop fighting who you are.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
tiring is that?
And what I find in the work I do with clients is that when we all stop fighting whatever it is we're fighting against, what we are fighting against tends to dissipate.
Ex- What do you know? Exactly. And I don't think people believe it until they start to see it. Like talking it through doesn't always make sense to people. But yes, right. It's like you drop the rope, you let go. There's nothing to fight against.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a powerful image. Not only am I letting go of this self-imposed responsibility about
Right.
something, but the thing I'm struggling against or feel as if I'm have to struggle against goes away, and suddenly there's nothing left to struggle against.
Right.
Now what? Now I can
Now
also
what?
say, oh my gosh, that's a big responsibility too. Now what?
Right. Right. Your whole world, your whole life's ahead of you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you gonna do with it? Yeah, exactly. Now what?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as I know train hundreds and I'm guessing thousands of coaches by this time. What do you see as one of the biggest roadblocks to new coaches sort of really being able to show up authentically in coaching sessions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this one's easy. I just finished a group, and it's what gets in their way is the belief they can do it right or wrong.
Oh.
You know, so if I could do it wrong, then I have to really just, put the wall up, make sure I ask just the right questions, be present in just the right way. And then they're not showing up authentically. And of course, then their client feels it and the whole thing goes the way they didn't want it to go.
Yeah.
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 It's back to that judgment piece, judging themselves like that it's right or wrong.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that sort of dualistic perspective of things causes a lot of troubles, it seems.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And it's easy to go to the dualistic piece, like, yeah, right, wrong, good, bad, black, white. Okay, we're good. But that's just not how life works.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's much more complicated than that.
So much more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, when you think about uh, some of the best ways to begin to open that door of self-awareness, what are maybe, one or two little steps or things that people can really use to begin that process?
So one of the funny ones I've done with clients before is like, what do you want for dinner?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like they're so in like whatever you want, it's fine. And there's no connection to themselves. And so
Oh.
it's kind of a safe one. Like, what do you really want for dinner? I really want pizza, but my partner wants something else. Like, what would it feel like to say that you want pizza? But just simple things, stopping and taking a look and what am I saying to myself right
Mm.
now? What am I feeling? What do I want? Like really stopping and being present with yourself, which in our world is so hard to do because we're just going, 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 and there's a million distractions and notifications and all the things. And social media, we're never just still. And I really think getting still sometimes and asking yourself, like, okay, what do I need right now? Or what do I want right now? Where
Mm.
am I in this moment?
Yeah,
Deep thoughts.
that is a powerful one.
Or pizza.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be deep.
That's
Self,
easy. I want pizza.
yeah, self-awareness is self-awareness. Yeah,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation of how one of the things that sort of got you started on this is when a therapist said who else do you share this with? And you
Mhm.
said no one. You said, well, let's change that.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, everyone in our life is not necessarily the person to be sharing intimate
True.
details with. How do we go about figuring out this is a good place to begin sharing my self awareness and to opening up to others?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Because it is scary. It could mean changing relationships. And I guess this is where, putting our courage on is if I share something with somebody, they might not want to, be my friend or be with me anymore. And am I willing to risk that? Ultimately, if not, we're really then surrounded by people who don't see the real us,
Mm,
which is, when you think about that, a sad state of affairs.
hmm.
And it's also risky to just put your heart on your sleeve and be who you are, and not everyone's going to want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I think about, well, experiences of my own life or how when I'm working with clients, sometimes when we or I or they take sort of that first step to share something they've not shared before, sometimes it feels safer to share it with someone who's not so close.
Well, have you ever heard that there's like a funny statistic about we're better listeners for like the stranger on a plane than we are to our loved ones or the people we work with every day?
Oh, yeah,
To
I
your
haven't heard
point.
that. I haven't heard that, but yeah,
Yeah, because to your point, it's safe. You got nothing to lose by talking to the person on the airplane.
yeah,
So they put their headphones in, whatever.
yeah.
Right.
I
Right.
yeah. I remember somebody telling me, never coach your family or friends because pretty soon they won't be your family or friends.
Unless you want to get rid of them.
Yeah, okay, that would be
Okay.
another.
So there's that. Right. Right. No, I mean, and that's who we're most vulnerable to ultimately, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Closest to us. Yeah.
absolutely.
But
So,
maybe it is a good place to start on a plane, or a bus or train, whatever it is.
yeah, yeah. Where the stakes are pretty low for you.
Overall, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I also know that you work with a lot of executives and people in the corporate world.
Hmm.
And I think about people, one of the questions people hate, and I have to say, I've never liked the question either when you go for an interview is, well, tell me about your weaknesses. How do you think about that question in a way that helps people show up authentically, but, speaks well of you at the same time, if that's even possible?
Yeah, so it's so funny you say this because when I was interviewing for my internship when I was getting my doctorate, at the place that I ended up landing, the guy asked me that question. I did the typical, I'm just really hard on myself. And he's like, BS. He goes, BS, give me something real. And I was like, oh. Oh, because I had rehearsed that one. I had that one down. What do you mean? And I really had to think about it. And, I said that sometimes I think I know everything shell on, or, you know, a, a wall essentially to not let people too close. So apparently he liked that answer because I got the job. I remember being like, "Oh, you just messed me up, dude." Like, because yeah, you don't want to say I'm an idiot,
Yeah,
I can't string a sentence together, but you do want to be honest.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing how sometimes that um, openness with others comes meeting us square in the face, doesn't it? Like,
Exactly.
oh
Like,
man, this
oh,
is one of
here's
those
the
times.
reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
even, sharing things of, I get reactive sometimes and defensive. I mean, I think people would really, or, I've been yelling at people and I wish I hadn't. I do think people appreciate that honesty because we're humans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I noticed when you just said that, though, there was something about your energy again, which gets back to that self-acceptance. Like, yeah, I do this, you know, but you weren't reacting to the fact that you had just admitted that either.
Right. Right. Just really owning it.
Yeah.
When my first child was born, I was with this other mom. I don't know, we were at like a play group or something. And I don't know, the kids were like toddlers, really a handful age. And she goes, "Do you ever not like your child?" And I started laughing. I go, "Yeah. What do you mean?" Like, and I remember her face like, "Whoa, of course." It's like, "Do you ever get mad at your spouse?" Yeah. You know, those are human things.
Yeah. Yeah. This human journey is a messy one, isn't it? It's not tidy.
It's not tidy at all.
Yeah.
Not. And
Yeah.
maybe that's it, embracing the not tidiness is part of the acceptance piece of, this is messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me of a friend I used to have when I was riding the bus every day. You become friends with people who also ride the same bus
Yes.
every day. And we were about to become parents. And she had 6 kids. And at one point, I don't remember what it was. There was something she wanted to give me, or something. So I got off. We walked to her house, and as we were walking in, she says, "Oh, I'm not going to apologize for being a mess because in 6 months this is going to be you." Walked in. Of course, the house was 6 kids. Everything was everywhere. Toys. And I and 6 months later, I thought, yeah, that's exactly what happens.
Yep. You know what you said? You were absolutely right. Yes, there's crap
Yes.
everywhere and diapers and all the things.
Yes, and we only had one, like
Right.
how is it possible?
Right. How does one baby make that big of a mess? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's
it's true.
amazing. It's a lovely mess in some ways, but okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
the
Exactly.
mess that was worth having for me.
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as people go away from this conversation and this idea of self-acceptance and self-awareness, what would you really like people to know
Mm.
about those topics?
Start early is one thing I mean, it's gotten easier as I've gotten older because I just don't care as much about what other people think. I think you start to let go of some of that. But I say start the journey early. Be
Mm,
aware that you're not so aware, that you're not accepting of who you are. And
yeah.
we get a lot of messages from society, from people in our lives that we're not good enough. And, we internalize those, and which makes sense. But can you start releasing like this? This one's not true. Wait, this one's not true. Like start releasing some of those
Mm,
and just slowly accepting.
yeah. Reminds me of a saying I heard once that, in our 20s, we worry a lot about what other people think about us.
Yeah.
And in our 40s, we stop worrying about what other people are thinking about us. And in our 60s, we realize nobody was thinking about us in the first place.
Exactly. That is it exactly. Oh, that's so great. I'm gonna have to steal that. Isn't it so true? No one really cares.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
one really cares. So all that energy we've been putting in, like, what do people think of me? They're not thinking of you. I love it. That's the best news of all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess that thing, the self-awareness of that part is like, oh, I guess I'm thinking about me too, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it. That's so
Oh,
funny.
wow.
That's great.
One question before we sign off, though. If people would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably the best way is on my website, Lisa Kaplin, Kaplin.com.
Great. I'll make sure to put that in the description of this video as well. Well, Lisa, this is always a pleasure talking with you. I always find myself smiling and laughing most of the time, which is such fun.
Good. It was very fun. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been my pleasure. And I can't wait till we have another conversation like this.
I'll look forward to it.